Hey, William Gilmore here for the ScreenwritersJourney.com. It is day 232 of the journey. It's been just over a month, almost 5 weeks since, what, Peanut? Dog's very unhappy that I'm doing a blog right now. Anyway, it's been just over a month since the last update here on the blog on the Screenwriter's Journey. And a lot has happened in that time, a lot of good stuff. I've been involved with Inside the Room. It's a sort of mock writer's room set up around the idea that you're pitching ideas for a television series, and each writer is creating their own series, and everybody else sort of pitches in, the way you would in a writer's room. That's been going really well. It's a lot different than I was expecting, and it's actually turned out to be very good for me. It's a lot more pitching than it is writing, just not something that I'm particularly good at, so I've learned a lot from that. I've been developing the series along the way and have written the teaser and the first act, and I will be presenting this weekend on Saturday the teaser. Hopefully, half the class goes this week, half the class goes the following week. So hopefully that will go over well. I've been taking it into rewrites on Thursday nights and testing it. Last week was the teaser. It went over really well, and then tonight I took in the first act to present. And that's really what I want to talk about tonight, is what happened at rewrites. And not so much about my piece, because it got overshadowed, although the reading itself went very well. We have a writer in the group, or did, who joined a couple months ago. And they always say, you never get a chance to make a second impression. Your first impression is sort of what's set in stone. And I will have to say, and I hadn't said this before to anybody, I've kept it to myself, this particular writer made quite an impression the first time he came in. He came across as arrogant, definitely a sense of superiority. It felt like he was looking down his noses at all of us, and we should have been, I don't know, grateful to be blessed by his presence is sort of the feeling that I got. And that would all have been fine if his writing had been stellar and it was just awesome and there was something to learn from it. But it wasn't. It was okay. It wasn't bad. I'm not going to sit here and say, God, he has no talent, he's not a writer, he doesn't know what he's doing. He does. He's definitely got a sense of story and whatnot, but it wasn't great. But that's fine. We're all here to learn. We're all trying to develop. We're trying to get to that level. But when someone comes in with that attitude, and just, everybody out of my way, I'm here, it can be a little irritating. And he's had a problem in that he sometimes gets upset when he doesn't get to read. But that's his fault. We have a set of rules. We have 6 slots available each night, and it's first come, first serve. So if you're one of the first 6, you get a chance to read. If you show up later and those slots have already been filled, you are put on the list for the following week and are given priority. So for instance, this week we had 2 carryover writers from last week. We had 8 writers last week, they only had 6 slots. 2 of those writers carried over, so they got slots 1 and 2. They are guaranteed to read this week. So that left 4 available slots. I was there first because I wanted to read tonight, because I want to present. Well, I am hoping to present Saturday at Inside the Room, and I wanted to hear the stuff out loud before I do that. So I made sure I was there really early. I got the first available slot, so I was number 3. This other writer, we'll call him Brian, showed up 4th. So he got the last slot. He got the 6th slot. So he was guaranteed a slot to read tonight. Apparently that didn't go over well with him. He didn't like being last. He has a habit of not showing up on nights that he's not reading. He only shows up on nights he has something to read. So he's not there supporting the other writers who have been there to support him even when they weren't reading. So it's a give and take in a workshop situation like that. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. I'm there for you when you're up. and hopefully you will be there for me when I'm up. And he didn't seem to want to do that. To each his own. There's not a requirement to do that, but it's a nicety. It's a polite thing. It's courteous. So as we started to read the night, our first writer went up and he asked Brian to read the narration. He was sitting right next to Brian. And it started almost from the first word, read. Brian obviously did not like the piece. He showed utter disdain for it. It's basically what it comes down to. There's a lot of eye rolling. There was ums and ahs and oh my gods. And he did turn to the writer at least one time and said, "I can't believe you wrote this." And he made a point of pointing out typos in the script. One particular that I remember was the word starts. The sentence was something like, he starts his car. And he's reading along, and well, there was a missing T, so it was stars. He's reading along, and he gets to it, and he says, he stars his car. He stars his car? That makes no sense to me. I don't know what this means. I'm completely lost. Oh, wait. Did you mean starts? Because if you did, you misspelled it. So we'll just go with that. He starts his car. It was completely uncalled for. It was rude. It was obnoxious. Absolutely no call for that. You certainly don't interrupt yourself or interrupt the reading to make comments like that. We have 2 rounds of comments afterwards. First round being positive, second being constructive criticism. And that's the time when you go, hey, you may want to check your typos or your formatting or whatever it is you want to say. That's the time to say that. You don't interrupt the reading and break the flow. It's just nasty, is what it is. And also, as far as critiquing someone on their typos or their formatting, in the workshop situation like that, I'm not big about doing that because a lot of times you're bringing in your work, fresh off the printer. You've pounded out the last page an hour before you left to come to the workshop. Maybe you didn't have time to run spell check. Maybe you didn't have time to go through and check all the formatting and make sure it's all the way you want it to be. You should try to do that. But in a workshop situation like that, you're wanting to hear, it's an experiment. Does the scene work? Do the characters work? Does, that kind of thing. I can go back and fix the formatting later, if all that works. Formatting doesn't matter if my story doesn't work, So there was that issue. And when he finished reading, and when the first writer was done, Brian turns to his companion, a young lady, and says, he goes, I'm done. Let's just get the fuck out of here. And said it loud enough for people to hear. So obviously he wasn't happy. And she said, no, I'd like to stay in here at least one more. So he said, fine, rolled his eyes some more. And he got up and he walked to the board that had everyone's name on it, and he erased his name. Took himself off the list. It's an important point. They stayed for the second reading. As soon as that was done, they left with Brian sort of storming out. No goodbyes to anyone. No, hey, thanks, guys, but I can't stay. Nothing. Just boom, gone. Kind of odd, but all right, fine. Then we did my piece, which went really, really well. Really happy with it. And just about the time that I was done, everyone's cell phones started buzzing. So everyone's picking up their cell phones and like, what's this? And we got a message from Brian on the Rewrites Facebook page, where he basically told us he was done with us. We were beneath him. He needed to move on to people who knew what they were doing, and he did not want to be part of a group that denied him the opportunity to hear his work out loud because someone was running her own personal fiefdom and was actively seeking to prevent him from advancing his career or getting his work seen, heard, whatever. And I did not understand that comment. Larissa is the woman he was referring to. She's one of the moderators of the group, and she makes sure that if there are carryover writers that they get first dibs and then fills in the slots afterwards. And he basically accused her of preventing him from being heard. But that's odd because he was on the list. He took himself off the list. Um, so she didn't do anything to prevent him from being heard last night. The only thing I can think is that he was maybe upset that he had to go last because he got there late, or at least wasn't there early enough to get an earlier slot. I was the first person there because I want to present this weekend at Inside the Room, and I wanted to hear that before I got into that situation. So I made sure I was there bright and early, and I got the first available slot, which still meant I was going third, but I was guaranteed a slot, as was Brian. So I talked to Larissa after that, and she said she's been getting a number of private messages from Brian over the last couple of months where he has complained about her and told her she needed to quit. She shouldn't be a part of the group. And I guess he's been using some rather salty language with her that would make a sailor blush. And to what end? For what reason? I don't know. She hasn't done anything to him. The rules are very clear as to how you get a chance to read. You have to show up. You have to show up early. And if you don't, that's what happens. She did nothing, so I don't know where those comments were coming from. Shortly thereafter, he started posting on his own Facebook page, since we're friends, or we were. Don't know how long this is going to last once he sees this. That he was asking for requests for a writer's group to join because he needed something that was more advanced, more suited to his skills, and someplace that he did not have to give notes on formatting. People who knew what they were doing, people who were experienced, someone up to his level. And that's kind of rude. When you've been working with these people and people have been offering you comments and help, there's no reason to sort of blast everybody like that. You just say, hey, I'm looking for a new group. You don't want to be part of our group anymore. You just say, hey guys, I got to run, thanks. And you leave, and you don't have to say anything. You don't have to be nasty and mean, disdainful, discourteous. It's wrong. It's a small industry with a very big memory. I'm not saying that anybody in our group will go on to make it somewhere, but there may come a day when someone is working somewhere in the industry. Either as a producer, maybe they're a writer, maybe they're on a team of writers and they're looking for someone. And his name will come up. And I guarantee you, everybody in the Rewatch group is going to remember him, and he's not going to get that recommendation. Now, he would probably say, so what? None of you people are going to make it anywhere. Anyway, I'm not worried about that, so it's not a bridge that I have to worry about burning. But you need to be really, really good to be able to do that. And he's just not there. He doesn't really have any credentials. He's got a few things. He's got a website with a couple of things on it that he's done that aren't great, but all of us have some stuff like that in our resume. But his writing just is not at the level that he thinks it is, and he's certainly not beyond the better writers in the group. So he's going to have this problem probably wherever he goes. And if he does get into a group that is much better, with a lot of really high quality writers, because we do have a mix. We have some who are very good, some who are struggling and beginning, but that's the nature of the beast. And there are some groups that have very high standards, and everybody's very experienced and with a lot of qualifications. If he manages to get into a group like that, he's going to be in for a rude awakening, and he probably won't last there either. And it's one of those things that it's aggravating because everybody's trying to get together and work, and you're trying to help each other out. And it's one of the things that has gotten me with the online forums, and I know I've talked about this before. I've been in several groups where one group turns against another group, and everyone is lambasting that group, and they're taking on individual people. And I understand some of the complaints. New writers come in, and the first thing they ask is, well, how do I format a screenplay? Well, the forum is not the place to learn how to do that. I'm not going to give you a lesson in that. And as a writer, you have to take a certain amount of responsibility, if you are a writer, you should know how to do a little research. And that means going to Google and typing in format a screenplay. It'll come up with all kinds of stuff for you to do. It'll list books you can buy on Amazon. The forum is not the place to do that. The forum is, to ask a very specific question. You're like, hey, I'm concerned about this portion of formatting, or how do I do this? Hey, here's a log line. How does that work? Asking those very broad, general, I've decided to write a screenplay. How do I get an agent? Write the screenplay first. Okay, that's always an amazing question. And then people will jump all over that person and get nasty with them. And part of that is, with an open online forum like that, you're going to get really, really young, raw, inexperienced people who don't know any better. You don't have to get nasty with them. It's the same thing with copyright. It doesn't matter how many times you explain copyright and that you have to go through the copyright office. Everyone's like, I just do the poor man's solution and mail it to myself. And it doesn't matter if you explain it to them and tell them, you can have 20 people tell them, that's not the way to do it, you're not protected, and they won't believe you. And so I know it gets aggravating, but just don't respond to those folks. Just let it go. Instead of letting the whole forum devolve into this nasty, everybody yelling and bickering. And if they're not capable of managing a simple Google search of how do I copyright my screenplay, just ignore them. And that's what I've done. I have actually bowed out of a couple of forums. I'm still connected with them, but I've blocked the feed so that I don't see that stuff. And it's been so liberating. I feel so much better about it all. And it's really a shame when something like that happens in a workshop situation where you're having face-to-face personal contact and interacting with people, and someone behaves that way. Because you can't get nasty and just fire off something the way you can online. It does take a little restraint. And while I wish Brian well in his future endeavors, I can also say good riddance. And my one note of caution to him would be, be careful about what you say to people and the bridges that you burn, because the scorpion sting that you may feel one day may be your own. Sort of throw back to the frog and the scorpion story. It's in his nature. So he will probably have problems down the road, but I do wish him well, but I'm also glad he's not with us anymore. Anyway, that's all I have to say. That's it for this edition of the blog here on the ScreenwritersJourney.com. I will be back this weekend, hopefully with an update on what happens inside the room, and let you know how that goes. Anyway, until then, please keep up the writing and don't let them get you down.